about that throughout as well.
I'm sure it's
So
going to. I'm sure it's going to. So thank you, Helen,
thank you.
for being part of the symposium, and I'm of course looking forward to it. What you're going to do is a little introduction about yourself. Then you'll give me a
Sure.
minute to just go through. I normally just put up my website just to tell people where to find
Absolutely.
information, and then we take it from there.
So thank you so much. So I'm Helen Lightstone. I'm in a little suburb east of Toronto. The suburb is called Whitby, Ontario, Canada. And what can I tell you? I've been mediating for about, since 2014 or 15. In Ontario, there's a series of designations. So I have 2 designations. I am a chartered mediator, a qualified arbitrator. I teach a great deal in the college system. So lots of ADR training background behind me. I teach, I'm also a licensed paralegal. In Ontario, all paralegals must be licensed, and we're licensed by the same body that licenses our lawyers. What else can I tell you? I have 3 accredited courses through the ADR Institute of Ontario, meaning if you want a designation in Canada, 3 of my classes count, if I could put it that way. And last week I received a wonderful award for, it was the ADR Institute of Ontario's, what they call Staff Choice Award. So the staff of the Institute got to pick a person, and they were awarded an award for whatever it is they felt they deserved it for. So when I was notified that I was getting this award, I just went, for what? So, but anyway, it's a lovely award. I received it physically. Unfortunately, the manufacturer of the award ran out before the award ceremony, and we received it the day of the award ceremony, but it's beautiful. And I'm very honored to have it. And I still don't know what I got it for.
Whatever it was, but when you said I have 3, I thought it's going to be children. Then I said 3 accredited. I said 3 accredited children. What are you going to say, Helen? What are you going to say?
They were like my children, I have to tell you that. I mean, so basically, to get the designations in Ontario, you need so many hours of training. So for your introductory, your qualified mediator designation, you need 80 hours of training. And I believe for the next designation, which is chartered, you need 160 hours of training. So I have 2 40-hour courses, and I have 1 21-hour course. So, and what we're going to talk about today comes from my second course, the advanced course. So one is introductory, one's advanced, and then the 21-hour course is also advanced, and very unique, I must say.
Perfect. The only thing is that, look, 2 things really we do not talk on my events and shows is the A word that you used, that I'm also an arbitrator. A words we don't use here. We're all about mediation.
No arbitration course at all. Nope.
No, we don't even talk about it. It's like a taboo
totally
word
different.
here.
Yeah, don't even, I've taken a course, but yes, I don't offer anything in arbitration in the A word at all.
A word, no A word.
Yeah.
So we can just say hi to Richard and Anna. If they are there somewhere, we know, but we can't see them, but they're there. So what I'm going to do is give you just 1 minute. Let's put up what we're doing here.
Okay.
So what we're doing is.
Oh, there you go. Thank you so much.
So of course, Richard was back, but he's gone. Richard will come in. We'll see you. You can say hi to us, but let me just put up what we're doing. This is neutrality and mediation. So now we're going to get you in, Richard. Give me a minute. You're going to come in. And so basically the idea being, to a certain extent, starting from what Desmond Tutu said, if you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. So Bernie Mayer, of course, has written a lot about this. So we had the keynote address. Really nice. I don't know whether you've seen it or you get time.
I did. I watched quite a bit of it, and of course Bernie Mayer is, fantastic. And I was surprised to hear he's not too far from where I live.
Yeah,
he's in Canada, not too far from me.
Yeah, he's right next to Lake Erie.
Erie.
Yeah,
Yep.
she's there, right there on the lake,
Yeah.
as I can see.
On the lake. And,
It's
and I'm
on the
telling
lake.
you, it's gonna be pretty unpleasant today because we're due for a big storm this afternoon.
Okay, let's not tell
So
him that. Let's not tell him that. Or maybe
no,
we have to tell him that. So,
we
and of
won't
course,
say anything.
and Ken will give the closing address tomorrow. So please
Yep.
be part of that. Do drop in there.
Thank you.
And of course, 12th December was the International Day of Neutrality. So we started on that day. So that's one
Beautiful.
part of it. You'll have to give me a minute more because I like to put it up as to the, I mean, the website.
Sure.
Only thing is, it's of course not so difficult to remember, mediatorvikram.com, but I need to just put it up for a second because look, ultimately there's so many videos out there. Everyone can't watch all of them. I know that. So now there are more than 475 videos up there.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
This was the last symposium. This one will come up. For this one will come up. But this was the last one on philosophy and mediation, which we ended on
Wow.
30th
Now
of.
I'm looking at Barbados, the Barbados flag
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Is that
Francis
their
Bell.
Chief Justice?
He's a judge in Barbados.
Beautiful.
Not the Chief Justice, but yeah. So it's
Wow.
been interesting. It was really interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So. And of course, social media. So this is mediatorvikram.com. So you have the basic. Look, I try and update it. The only thing is this symposium thing hasn't gone up there. I had other things to do. Maybe let's just look at it that.
You're busy. Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, so social media connect. I keep saying I'm the most accessible person in the world. You can just click here, send me a message. I'll get back. This one is out
Wow.
there just to tell people that I do exist in a physical space also. I'm just not an online person. I'm not a bot or whatever. So
definitely not a bot. Thank you for that.
The World Mediation Circle is a web of mediation circles that I'm creating around the world. So every community, every school will have one, every country will have one. And basically idea being that let's identify those with the mediator mindset. Of course, like you said, you do training. I'm on the other side. I'm saying that people exist to have that skill. Yes, that skill development can happen. And I put out so much, all these videos that they can watch it because Helen, the whole thing is that there are people out there who will never get access to say what you teach. I mean, they won't.
Yeah.
So good part is at least you're putting out content. That photography and mediation thing that you did, it's out there. People can watch it. So that's the whole idea of what I'm doing. I'm saying those people with the mediator mindset, let's just reach them and get them out and let communities value them. And that's when I feel mediation will take off because we'll have to create that space around them. So it has to happen there. I'm not saying that I'm creating people and I'm sending it out to you. You have those people, let's bring them out.
Yeah.
And then after that, whatever skill development programs have to happen, then they'll get activated because they'll say, oh, wow, we can actually do this as a livelihood, because that's not happening for people right now. So they have the A word in their name also sometimes.
A word.
So support part of it. Yeah.
Yesterday we talked about the A word in class, so now it's always going to be referred to as the A word.
So support part of it. I mean, World Mediation Circle also I put out that look, become a patron. So I have that patron thing there.
Yes.
Gift that
wow.
we had this discussion with Ken on the last symposium about the gifting culture. I don't want to go out and say, look, I want to charge so much for Ken to come in, because I mean, of course, the people charge a lot for him to come in for their session, but he does it for free and he reaches out. So I cannot have this thing that I want to charge people. So everything's free there, but gifting is always a good thing. So shows and events, that all the various events come here, but not, I mean, all of them, like this symposium thing hasn't come here. And we have, Ken has been, of course, about, I think we've had some, look, this last year we did this. This year, of course, I put it up. So we had this symposium on mediation in our culture and traditions. There were 97 speakers from 45 countries. Someone called it the Woodstock of mediation. Nice stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
So this was all, this symposium, we had this, I have a show called In Conversation with a Beautiful Mind. Just a conversation with those with the mediator mindset, nothing else. Evolution of a mediator is where I started these videos. This is where it comes from, that mediators are not made in 40-hour factories. They go through so much in their lives to be who they are. And that's the whole thing that I want to highlight. So that evolution mediator again started with Ken Cloke. And it's interesting to see that part of people, because everyone looks at his practice and how to do mediations, but here him talking about his life and his growing up and all those things, everything's important.
Oh, it is. I do love that one, the evolution of a mediator. Everybody
Yeah.
finds their path differently.
Yeah, and why they are who they are, all those experiences and everything. So you'll find
Yeah.
all those where Ken has come in, all those YouTube links are here. So there are lots of shows.
Wow.
And of course, we have all these other YouTube things. This is that Woodstock of mediation. This is a poster that Rafael made. He's in Mexico. While this thing was going on, he
Wow.
made this poster. So
Beautiful.
I
You
won't
can
take.
see sort of a Mexican overtone with the colors with that as well. And the music piece. You can kind of see it.
Yeah, but according to what I haven't seen the original poster of Woodstock, but he says this is basically based on that poster,
Yeah.
the original poster of Woodstock. So Helen, that's about it. This is your
Wow.
show now, and like I said, let's just say hi to Richard and Anna. Let them come in. Please tell us you're there. You're not bots, and then we go forward. Are you going to say hi to us? Well, look, you're in a class. I mean, Helen, if you can't do that, you can't just disappear in class.
They've been in class with me all week. I'm sure they're very happy to not, to have a different perspective of class.
Okay, so Anna, you want to just say hi? If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Good morning or good evening, everyone. Yes, my name's Anna. I'm taking the course with Helen, and I'm hoping to get my designation after this course.
Great. And Richard, please.
Good day. I'm Richard Stewart. I actually come from this whole business from a slightly different approach because I spent 30 years working in adult and youth corrections and regular and forensic psychiatry. So as with Anna, I've spent the week with Helen, and I last spring completed a course as a paralegal. So this is kind of like my third career. So I'm bringing like as you said, we all bring something different to the table, and my deck is way different than a lot of other people.
Absolutely. Everything is important. I mean, that's whatever you bring in. This is one of those areas where we need all that. You need the wider experience, the exposure, and whenever you start, however late it is, of course, this is early for you. Let's just say it's early for you, but people can start late. But both of you are also in Canada, in Ontario. Or
Yeah.
They're also there.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Helen, your show. I am like
Thank
I keep
you.
saying, look, Richard is going mute. So he's a mute spectator. I'm not going mute, but I'm there, but I'm not a mute spectator, but I'm a spectator. So it's your show
Thank
totally.
you so much.
Please.
So, all right, I'm going to share the screen, and here we go. So, I first of all, hopefully you can see this okay. I wanted to say thank you so much for inviting me to this fabulous symposium. And I do love that quote. I thought it was quite lovely. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. I love this. I've never heard this before, and I thought it was quite wonderful. I invite anybody to ask questions if the chat is available. So thank you again for the inviting me to the symposium. It's terrific to be here. And I hope I'm not making anybody nauseous with the scrolling, but I did a document a number of years ago on how film contributes to teaching conflict resolution principles. And I thought this one was a great film to use. So, and I encourage, like I said, Mediator, Vikram, Richard, Anna, anybody else to ask me any questions. So 12 Angry Men was a film done in 1957. We're going to look at whether or not one particular juror would have the makings of a good mediator today. So I'm going to move forward. You can see I've got a little box of popcorn here so we can, watch the film. I do have a film clip, and we'll just see if we've got time to show it. So again, 12 Angry Men, it's the story of a young man who's on trial for the murder of his father. It's used in law schools to talk about reasonable doubt, evidence, and unanimous verdicts. And it demonstrates in a lot of ways, this particular film, conflict resolution principles. And by that also, like, how do you remain neutral? So this has to be my favorite, one of my favorite films. And now, because I'm a mediator and I've been mediating for a while, I look at everything quite differently. So we're going to look at a few minutes at what drives conflict. And now I go through my life going, oh, well, that's a that type of conflict, and that's a this type of conflict. And we'll look at 12 Angry Men. And I think this all helps build that neutrality that is so important. So we're going to look at how two main characters, juror number 3 and juror number 8, demonstrate conflict resolution theory, and how they may or may not, well, certainly juror 8, who I focus on is whether or not he's a good mediator. He loses his neutrality, but on the whole, I think with proper training, he'd be great. So the interesting thing about this film is that the author of it, just to give you the historical background, wrote it in 1954 because years before he was a juror, and he was a juror on a murder trial. And so he has this personal quote: "It was such an impressive, solemn setting in a great big wood paneled courtroom with a silver-haired judge. I was overwhelmed. I was on a jury for a manslaughter case, and we got into this terrific, furious 8-hour argument in the jury room. What a setting for a drama." So in fact, the movie was originally, I believe, a live TV production. So we can imagine what television was back in its day when things were live. And then it became a play, and then also it became this fantastic movie. So we're looking at 12 Angry Men as part of that rights-based system. You know, I tell my participants in my private training as well as in the college system, it's a rights-based system. So I usually tap my finger on the corner of the desk and I say, it is my right to sue you. This is absolutely a rights-based process because we're in a courtroom. So because this film was born out of conflict, so it's a major theme in the film. As soon as we're introduced to the movie, the movie opens, there's a couple of people walking into a courtroom, and then you see the jury, 12 people and 12 men on the jury. Okay, this young boy, he's accused of killing his father, and introduces the theme immediately by establishing this murderous encounter. He's accused of stabbing his father. The first shots in the courtroom establish that rights-based process where we understand that the lawyers for the defense and the prosecution has already been heard, evidence and testimony has been given. And then afterwards, the judge is sitting there and he is bored to tears. You know, he's like this, okay, it's now your responsibility to separate the facts from the fancy, which I just love that, and come to a unanimous decision. If the jurors find the accused guilty, the court has no mercy and they execute the young man, but it must be unanimous. The jurors leave the courtroom, throw their final blank, disinterested glances towards the young boy, and then you see the jurors entering into the jury room, where they decide the unanimous fate. Now, I have a YouTube link ready.
But maybe, Helen, maybe we should not play it, the YouTube link.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, because YouTube otherwise says there's a copyright claim, and then I don't want your session to be removed there.
No, I'm totally good with that. I was wondering whether or not. So I'm back. So can Richard and Anna, can you both see we're back on the document? Okay, yeah. Great. Okay. So in that film, the clip that we're not showing you, and I agree, I think what would happen is it would be blocked out.
Yeah.
So you see the 12 men. So this is really interesting. It's 1957. Women were not on juries yet, and there were no people of color on the jury. So we've got this historical background that paints a picture already. And they sit in order of their jury number, 1 through 12. And each one, you're sort of introduced to each one, and they go through, in the mediation world, I create an analogy between the position and the interests. So I learned there's this what's the word I'm looking for? Right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, a quote by somebody who I don't know who said it, anonymous person who said, "A position is what you want, and an interest is why you want it." So as mediators, being neutral, we're always looking for what is the position of each party, and then what are those underlying reasons for it? The wants, needs, fears, desires, and concerns. So that's part of the mediator's role. You cannot go from the positions of the parties to a resolution. You have to figure out why the position is important. And in this instance, the scene that we would have been able to see, you basically are introduced to each of the men that are jurors and what their position is. For example, in one of the instances, one of the jurors has a ball game coming up that evening. So he basically wants to go with whatever the group is deciding. He will agree with them just so he can get out and go to the ball game. The other juror who's very interesting is juror number 3, who I mentioned earlier, who he has so again, another underlying interest. He is just making sure and pushing that point across that the young boy is guilty. He wants him executed. And his underlying interest is because he has a very bad relationship with his own son. And so he is taking out his issues of his relationship on this young person. So again, things you've got to know as a mediator. You've got to catch that or nip it in the bud, as they say. So conflict themes in this description, I use a textbook called Conflict Resolution Toolbox by one of Toronto's really, really great mediators and educators, Gary Furlong. He's very dynamic. And so we're going to look at a little bit of theory from him, and then a textbook that I love using called Choices in Approaching Conflict. And also, I'm sorry I missed one, Dispute Resolution Readings and Case Studies by Judy McFarlane. So we'll have a look at what is driving that conflict in the first place. So again, things we need to know as mediators to maintain our neutrality and to better assist the parties in helping them resolve their own conflict. So this is what Gary Furlong refers to as the circle of conflict. I've reproduced it. Now, also, I also know that this is referred to as Moore's sphere of conflict, but I believe Moore excludes moods. So we have to look at what's driving this conflict in the first place, so we understand our participants in the conflict, and also by being neutral, we can again assist them. So let's have a look. We've got moods, relationships, and values, data, interest, and structure. And so, I hope I'm not making anybody nauseous. So the diagram describes conflict and why a disputant finds themselves in the conflict that they are in. I think almost every conflict that you might see outside your home inside your home, in the workplace, anywhere, boils down to one or a combination of these. And again, a tool in the mediator's toolbox to help address that neutrality. So moods, factors unrelated to a dispute. You know, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today and I'm grumpy. So some people are impacted by my grumpiness. Or, you know, bad hair day, woke up on the wrong side of bed, or you just come in and you're miserable. But now we have also in the blue quadrant, we have relationships. So negative experiences. So in this instance, we can look at juror number 3. He has a negative experience based on his relationship with his son. Stereotypes and poor or failed communication. All things that the mediator is listening to. The interesting thing with the stereotypes, of course, is I don't understand those people. You know, and well, let's talk about what you mean when you say those people. And so what the mediator then needs to do to reframe that or potentially educate, not educate so much, but have them look at their comment in a different light and its impact. Their value system, belief system, right or wrong, good and evil. I put this down to one of the sayings, and I know that Anna and Richard heard me say it earlier this week. A great example of a values conflict would be somebody saying, whose religion is better, mine or yours? You know, so things, again, everybody needs to listen to. Then we have data. So we're now moving from the lower to the red zone. Lack of information, too much information, wrong information. So I like to use the example of somebody was let go from their job, liberated from their job, and the person next to them gets to they take it on. And now they might have too much information. We go to structure. I'm just going to skip interest for a moment. You know, authority issues, organizational structures, limited resources. These are all structural components. So, and then the last one, I like to say that we've got to understand as neutral mediators, we have to understand the wants, needs, fears, desires, and concerns of our parties. But we also need to keep in mind this this triangle that would be broken up into 3 parts. What is the substance of the dispute? Why are we actually here? What is the process of what's going on? And how, as mediators, do we balance the psychological or emotional components of that party? And again, you know, everything the mediator has to think about all the time in order to maintain that neutral piece. So the reason why moods, relationships, and values are in blue and data, interest, and structures are in red is fairly specific, but is there anybody that might want, sorry, I'm putting my teacher hat on. Is there anybody that might want to guess why some are blue and some are red?
All students are now silent. No one.
Of course, that's okay. So I'm very happy to explain. Moods, relationships, and values. I could try as much as I wanted to tell you my opinion on whatever value I'm talking about. It is not entirely likely, although not impossible, that you will change your mind. Also with relationships, I may not be able to address your previous bad relationships, and I may or may not be able to talk you out of your bad hair day. But with those 3, maybe it's not about changing the mindset. Maybe it's about appreciating and at least understanding where the person is coming from. You don't necessarily have to agree with it. Data, interest, and structures are more negotiable. So, and somebody was let go from the job. I inherited their workload in addition to mine. So maybe I could have actually spoken to somebody about what that looks like for me and how can we, is there anything that can be done? Same with that substantive, procedural, and psychological piece. We could talk about it. We don't know exactly why we're here at mediation. Let's talk about it. We don't know the process of what's going on. We can address it. And if you're upset, keeping in mind cultural pieces, if you're upset, you can take a break. So, and my favorite is with the structural, if you don't like your particular government that's in place, you vote the next time there's a federal election. If you don't like the structure of the government, here's your opportunity to vote. So it's always great when there's a mediation class for me next to an election. This is your opportunity. Don't know what's going to happen, but at least you have that time. So all skill sets that the mediator needs. So one less negotiable, one a little bit more negotiable. So now juror 10 in this is in 12 Angry Men is the most bigoted juror. He demonstrates relationship stereotypes in that relationship sector. Well, he claims he is the first to admit they are all not that bad. He addresses his fellow jurors with such venom regarding them that they end up shunning him. Now, Anna and Richard know, I love to divide these into characters so that if anybody wants to read juror 10, I open the floor. If anyone would like to be juror 10, I think we need a juror 8 and a juror 3. Or I'm very good to read it myself. Mediator Vikram, I see you look like you're ready to do this.
I can do that, but only thing that I have to increase the font size.
Sure. Yeah. Hold on 2 seconds.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, perfect. You want me to be juror 10, is it?
Yeah, you're juror
Okay.
10.
Perfect. So you want me to read that? And with emotion, I don't
Go for
understand you people. You're not going to tell me you believe that phony story about losing the knife and that business about the movies. Look, you know how these people lie. It's born in them. They don't know that what truth is. And let me tell you, they don't need any real big reason to kill someone either. No, sir. They're real big drinkers, all of them. You know that. And bang, someone's lying in the gutter. That's the way they are by nature, violent. Where are you going? Look, they're lushing it up and fighting all the time. And if somebody gets killed, so somebody gets killed. They don't care. Sure. There's some good things about them too. Look, I'm the first one to say that I've known a couple who are okay, but that's the exception. What's going on here? This kid is a liar. I know all about them. They're no good. There's not a one of them who's any good. I mean, what's happening in here? There's this kid on trial here, his type. Well, don't you know about them? These people are dangerous. They're wild. Listen to me. Listen to me. Well, this is like a theater class.
Well, welcome to my world. So Richard and Anna, they know this is what I do. Hopefully it engages everybody. And we need a juror 4. So juror 10.
Gilbert is
the
yeah. Okay.
Okay, Gilbert.
Because it's his session after yours. Yeah, his session
Hello.
after yours.
Do you understand me clear and loud?
Yes,
Beautiful.
Gilbert.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Please.
I have. Now sit down and don't open your mouth again.
Thank you so much. So that's wonderful. So the photograph I'm about to show you depicts the response by the jurors who find his verbal attack nothing short of repulsive. So this is juror 4. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Here's juror 10, and they are shunning him. He falls right into that stereotypical, relationship sector. It's a brilliant, I won't go on about it, but from a staging point of view, this is a brilliant scene, how they orchestrated everybody, but I won't rant on that too much. So similarly, juror 3, who can be seen. Oh, juror 3 is here. He is the juror that has the issue with his son. So similarly, juror 3, Lee J. Cobb, demonstrates his inability to sustain that relationship with his son, who he identifies with the accused. So again, an underlying interest there that the mediator really needs to catch. It's his hope that the accused will be found guilty so that he may impart some punishment towards his son, who he identifies as that young boy at the center of the jury deliberations. And then much may be said about that structural piece about how this jury was created in 1957, all male, all white. So in Gary Furlong's The Toolbox, he says it could be described as having a limited resource. Now, Gary Furlong's quote is, having limited resources in business. And while it would not be appropriate to refer to a criminal case as a business, limited resource may be applied to the structural elements of the conflict in the film. I'm going to scroll up just a minute. So for example, a limited resource may be seen as the defendant's less than satisfactory lawyer who, having not delved into the evidence and witness testimony as thoroughly as the jurors did not provide an adequate defense. So again, now I think we're sort of seeing maybe some power imbalances that a neutral mediator might need to catch. As such, it could be seen that some of the structural elements of the trial, such as that defense lawyer, were weak or faulty, and subsequently created great conflict in the jury room. This then leads to the next thing that the mediator's thinking about is the data conflict, where the nature of the deliberations centered on too little or incorrect information. So it is a great film for anybody who hasn't seen it. For example, how did a witness get out of bed to hear the commotion in the hallway? So this young boy has stabbed his father, people running downstairs to escape the scene, walk down the hall, open the door within a very limited time frame while dragging his leg behind him because he had a stroke the year before, a couple of years before. So if they're saying there was a argument, a thud running down the stairs, they did a reenactment of Vikram. You would have, speaking of theater, in the movie, they reenacted. How could this man who had a stroke get to the door to see what had happened in such a short period of time? And how did one of the witnesses see the murder from outside a window 60 feet away without wearing your glasses? So it's I'm giving you away all the good stuff of 12 Angry Men, but so it was not until the former was reenacted that it became apparent that the data was not correct. So I'm going to scroll a little bit more. One could also view the film as an interest-based conflict, which I talked a little bit about earlier. The unknown author of the quote, "A position is what you want and an interest is why you wanted," can also be discovered within the film as each juror comes into the jury room with a position, guilty, it's 11-1 at the beginning, it's guilty, and an underlying interest for it. For example, juror 7 wants a guilty verdict right away, and his underlying interest is to get to that baseball game scheduled for later that day. So we have time to look at the role of the mediator, and of course, this is where the neutral piece comes in. The mediator may be described as a neutral third party who guides the parties through a process that they have no interest in the outcome. So, the role of the mediator: guiding, listening for cues, moving, linking, creating patterns of conversation. It has been described in the textbook, The Art and Practice of Mediation, as artistry and mediation. So what the mediator does, again, apologies for scrolling, is how do they respond neutrally to that surprising statement? And I'm sure everybody has heard something that inwardly you went, oh dear, I can't believe that person just said that, or an anticipated action. I've seen fewer of those, a moment of uncertainty, or a particular roadblock. So what the mediator is doing is all of a sudden they're aware, they reflect, and now you have to come up with an hypothesis before they take an action, right? Or ask the next question. So we kind of learn, you know, and all this is sort of shown on the mediator's face with no, you know, with neutrality. I remember once in a class that I was taking, where I was a student, and there was it was intense, and somebody asked a question. I think I was meant to be the mediator. I was a mediator, and I raised an eyebrow in surprise because the question was so intense, and I was slapped on the wrist for showing that much emotion. So anyway, not that we're robots, but you know, I was sort of not told off, but anyway. So when the process of awareness, reflection, and hypothesizing happens, that is what is known as artistry and mediation. So I also compare these types of, well, a mediation like a choreographer does. You're telling the parties, because there's a process, you tell the parties what to do, where to go, like here are the steps, but they actually never know you're doing it. And then you can step out of the way at times. So Juror 8, who is Henry Fonda's character, exemplifies the awareness, reflection, hypothesizing theory, and by doing so is intentional and strategic mediator. The book suggests that a good mediator is confident, has strong leadership skills, and has the ability to guide the process. And I am all about keeping that process in mind. Sometimes you can go back and forth, but you know, try and do your best to follow the steps. In order for Henry Fonda's character now, at the very beginning of the film, everybody, so 11 jurors vote guilty. He is the only juror to say not guilty because he realizes there isn't enough information for him to move forward with a guilty verdict. So that's an interesting piece. This is why I love Henry Fonda's character so much. And I talk about whether or not he would make a good mediator. In order for Henry Fonda to achieve that first step, or the awareness step, he must show that he has the capability to apply his analytical skills. So he listens carefully to the trial. He's able to analyze the content by using logic and reason, and he was able to reflect on the strengths and the weaknesses of the testimony and the opinion of the jurors. Not unlike what a mediator will do. Having the natural instinct of a mediator, he's able to hypothesize using his knowledge of the social and psychological theories of human behavior and interaction. And there are no two scenes in the film that demonstrates his ability to hypothesize what's going on than the deliberate baiting of a juror on the purchase of a switchblade. Now, not necessarily neutral, but we'll get there. While these two elements are in fact a negative attribute, it does demonstrate an understanding of the human psyche. Also mentioned in practice is the fluidity in which the three elements take place. Juror 8 moves with ease from one to another, and there is rarely a moment that we as the audience don't understand he isn't actively listening. He's listening it all the time, even though at points, you know, he's silent. We all, you know, of course, silence is a great use of active listening in a mediation. So unbeknownst to Sidney Lumet's direction of 12 Angry Men, he addresses the artistry of a mediator without ever knowing it. As a result of his direction, one might ask the question, would Juror 8 make a good mediator today? And does he possess and demonstrate those necessary skills? And it does seem that he has the makings of a fine mediator, despite some very human frailties. The first piece that comes to mind, of course, is his use of active listening skills, his body language, the questions that he asks, consequential questions, and further exploration of the mediator's skills is the ability to remain neutral, which he doesn't all the time. He's not bad up until a point. There's a lot of commotion at the beginning of the film. We're going to need a juror 7. We have our juror 8. Okay,
Anna,
lots of commotion. Pardon me?
We need to get someone in. Anna, Richard should come in.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of commotion at the beginning of the film as the jurors settle into the room. There's smoking. This pending baseball game is a big discussion. The bigot, juror 10, has a summer cold, and comments regarding the oppressive heat and lack of air movement. While the jurors move to their chairs, juror 8 remains at the window, looking at the view and making no comment. At this point, we're introduced to juror 8, who is calm. He is the last to take a seat, and after the initial vote of 11-1, he is asked by juror 7. I'm sorry, do we actually have a juror 8? Henry Fonda's character?
Do we? Right. We'll take it up. Helen, you like that character.
Okay,
right?
I don't mind doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go through 7 and 8. So after the initial vote of 11-1, he's the only person to vote not guilty. He is asked by juror 7, what do we do now? And juror 8 says, I guess we talk. While typically it's not the mediator that would engage in much discussion, it would be the mediator's role to encourage the discussion, and does so in the following dialogue. Excuse me again. So juror 7 says, so how come you vote not guilty? Juror 8 says, listen, there were 11 votes for guilty. It's not easy to raise my hand and send a boy off to die without talking about it first. So very moving, let's talk. We got to talk this out. It also becomes apparent that juror 8 listened attentively to the 6 days of testimony in court and relayed the details of the defendant's past in detail to his fellow jurors. Although unfamiliar with that term position, I'm taking a stance on this, juror 8 clearly identified the accused position, because he could die, as miserable. His use of body language is also telling of a good mediator. For example, his tone of voice is typically calm and steady. He makes eye contact easily and is relaxed and still. So with this particular piece, cultural elements have not come into play where it might be inappropriate to have eye contact with somebody, but that is not the case in this particular time period. He's engaged while he is seated as he leans forward with his hands folded. While in court, juror 8 becomes curious as to the ability of the defense counsel to do a good job, and says to the jurors in the jury room, those 2 witnesses were the entire case for the prosecution. Now, in a great mediator style question, supposing they're wrong, could they be wrong? They're only people. So it's a consequential question. By asking this question, he's asking a question that is not only reflective, but meant to challenge. This type of question is often used by a mediator when searching for further explanation or another answer. At times, it appears that jury 8 has the ability to be neutral. However, there are several times in the film that he does not. In one instance, he wants to prove a point to a juror 3, impressing upon him that the saying, and juror 8 says, I'll kill him, is just a figure of speech. In order to do this, he provokes juror 3 to lunge after him. The following dialogue pushes juror to the point where he yells, I'll kill him. Now, not neutral and not a great example of a mediator. So juror 8 says, perhaps you'd like to pull the switch, juror 3. For this kid, you bet I would, because again, the juror 3 is aligning his position and his underlying interest with a young boy on trial. Juror 8, I feel sorry for you, what it must feel like to want to pull the switch. Ever since you walked into this room, you've been acting like a self-appointed public avenger. You want to see this boy die because you personally want it, not because of the facts. You're a sadist, juror 3. And then you see this great dramatic scene. Let me go. I'll kill him. I'll kill him. I don't understand you people. Everybody's holding juror 3 back. And then juror 8 says, you don't really mean that, do you? So, in perhaps the most obvious violation of a mediator's neutrality. So juror 8 admits to the other jurors he went walking one evening and purchased a switchblade knife exactly like the one the defendant supposedly used to kill his father. So so this is interesting because there's a lot of there's a lot of talk around how unique that switchblade knife is. And in this very dramatic note or moment, juror 8 slams exactly the same knife on the table. Definitely not demonstrating mediator neutrality. So juror 8 says, "That's right, I broke the law." He suggests that someone else could have stabbed his father with a similar knife. Although his intent was to suggest a possibility that someone else might have committed the murder, he broke the law in doing so, and so challenged his neutrality. So, sort of contrary to the theme of Vikram, your whole symposium, here's an example of what not to do. Even with those two challenges in mind, it would be possible that, given good training, juror 8 would make an excellent mediator despite his frailties. And 12 Angry Men is an example of how a classic, maybe an American classic courtroom drama produced in 1957, may be used years later to delve into dispute resolution concepts. And the concepts explored were internal conflict, the relationships, conflict between jurors, and especially, specifically juror 3 and 8, as well as more conflict theory on what drives conflict. We also discussed whether or not Henry Fonda would make a good mediator today. So that is I'm going to stop the share. That is my presentation on neutrality pieces, what to do, what not to do, how to view things from that conflict resolution theory perspective so that a mediator can maintain their neutrality.
Perfect. Really
and
nice.
There you go. I open the floor to questions.
The only thing is, are we also connecting photography, neutrality, and mediation in this session?
So yeah, because I think one of my favorite images from a presentation I did last week was the woman who, so I do this presentation and she didn't want to be photographed, right? She didn't want to be photographed. Well, maybe this isn't a great example of neutrality, but anyway, what was going on was she didn't want her double chin to be photographed. So that was really what was going on. It was like, my position is, don't photograph me. My underlying interest is, I don't want this. So a mediator, of course, is never going to push a disputant if they don't want to participate, because mediation is voluntary. But by asking the right questions, such as why not, or delving into why they don't want to be photographed. Similarly, I don't want to participate in that mediation process. You can do something about her double chin. And so the great tip that I had last week is, you don't have the person facing the camera. I'm going on international live recording showing my double chin. So you move the chair away, so it's this way, I'm facing away, and you have the party do a twist and lean in, and thereby reducing, hopefully, that. So the mediator, I don't know how to relate that to neutrality, but it's the first thing that came to mind, is just discovering those underlying reasons why. Why don't you want to participate in the mediation? I'm fearful of what's going to happen. Let's talk about it. So there you go. The neutrality in photography, it's all about, using all your skill set that you've learned throughout the years to work with your parties, and it's not dissimilar to a photograph. How do I get that best image? There was one of the hosts, I think, really liked a photograph I did of a close-up of a raindrop on a big window that was full of raindrops. They love this one. And it's like, okay, the close-up of the raindrop was all about, you have to get to the details because that is part of the bigger picture. Right. So it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting. I think that whole session is really interesting.
Thank you.
People
Thank
should
you.
watch it.
And
Yeah, I should post. I'll also post it separately, and the people should watch that.
thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, somewhere the comparison between the position of people in a picture and
Yep.
their interest to be in that position, something you'll come up with. I'm sure you'll come up with a lot of these things now.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite fun.
So the only thing is that if anyone has questions, they can always put it in the chat. Otherwise, I don't know, because Mandy normally always has questions. The only thing is sometimes she last time we had this discussion, she said, look, I won't ask the question, too long a question. I don't want to do that, to respect the speaker. So Mandy, if there's something short that you want to ask,
Yeah.
Helen? Yeah. Well, yeah, Mandy.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. It was so nice and so many images you brought us, and it was so clear. All the message, I liked very much your talking, very, very much.
Thank
I
you.
like photography, and it gave me many, many reasons to realize what you were saying. It was perfect.
Oh, thank you very much.
I will try to practice myself because master teacher Nick Vikram is helping me to make clear, short, and neutral questions.
Right. Yeah.
So
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm happy to do that presentation anytime.
Perfect. We'll definitely do that.
Very nice.
Thank you.
The question is, suppose there is a camera.
Yep.
We are the camera, or we are the photographers.
Yeah. So my thought is we're the photographers. We are the photographers. So because in fact the camera doesn't really matter. Or what camera you use. You could be using your cell phone camera, which is also great. Or you could be using a digital camera. So I think we're the photographers and the mediators.
When we say we mean the mediators or all human beings?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Some people would rather be the subject matter, I think.
So the analogy, So I was just thinking the analogy with that you said the mediator is the photographer. So are you looking at the camera being the process? So where do we some analogy on the various models that people have in relation to mediation? So the camera changes and that how that looks at the participants and all. Something interesting can come up. I think, Helen, this is an area which definitely lots can be looked
I think
at.
so.
You've
I think so.
opened up a discussion on something. I mean, just looking at that presentation of yours, I said, this is something very interesting direction that you've given the whole thing.
Thank
Can
you
I
very
have
much.
one more question?
Sure.
She can? She does?
Yep.
Okay. Quick one, because Gilbert's session is starting in the next 1 minute. Please.
Yeah.
Can we say that yes is the click? The yes after the mediation is the click. It's the moment when we take a photograph. It's the moment we say yes. Is it getting to yes? Isn't it to click?
I think so. I think that sounds great. And capturing the emotion of, oh my gosh, we settled and I never believed we would.
Yeah. Okay. So finally, all the positions are in place, all the interests are in place, everything done. Now go yes.
We're good. Now,
but let me tell you, Mandy, this getting to yes, I have changed that. This is old school. Now it is getting to hugs. That's the new book.
Getting two
which
hugs.
yes, that's the book I'm going to write. Okay, so I'm
I
going to put
think
it
you
on.
should. That's
And all of you are
amazing.
going, all of you are going to contribute to it. All of you,
Thank
we're going to
you.
do that. We're going to put
That's
it all
great.
out, one article each. Let's put it out there because I have a symposium on heart, soul, spirituality, and mediation, which of course will come up again next year. So I mean, the idea is a lot larger thing. But only thing now, Helen, the thing is that your session definitely
you.
really interesting, but we just have because we have to start Gilbert's session now.
Right. And I've
So-
got a class that
Yeah.
Richard and Anna we all have to get to continue our week-long class. So thank you so much. Mandy, thank you for asking that question. Mediator Vikram, thank you for this fantastic opportunity. I
And you
really
can-
appreciate it.
You can say hi to Gilbert. Gilbert, you want to say hi to Helen? Gilbert's in Luxembourg, and we're setting
that's
up
amazing.
a Luxembourg mediation circle.
Hi, Helen. Excuse me. I found this very interesting, but I didn't follow it completely. But
Okay.
I saw that you have it in your book, I guess.
I have a book coming out in early 2023.
Ah, that's good to know.
Yep.
So we can follow it again in your book then.
Yeah. And 6 other films as well.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Yes.
Yeah. And happy to talk anytime.
Okay.
Mediator Vikram, if you want to pass out my email address, I'm
I'll do
totally
that.
good.
Although everyone can connect on LinkedIn also, because definitely would have
Yes.
seen that, but I'll definitely circulate this maybe in the post. So thank you very much,
Thank
Helen.
you. Thank you so much. That
Lovely
was great.
presentation. Yeah. So thank
Okay.
you. And thank you, Richard and
Thank you,
Anna, to come
everybody.
in, and see you then.
Yep. Thanks so much.
Bye.